But she and I will go together alone on a trip, probably 3 or 4 times a year.
Really?
Just even if it's a long weekend,
that.
because that's the way when your kids move out, you're not going to be this unhappy empty nester couple, right? That doesn't even know how to be around each other. That's to me, that's where the business and the personal come together, because you've built this life, you've built this business, and it's nice cash flow and it's building wealth for you. What do you do with that once? You know, don't wait that to actually enjoy it till then.
Yeah. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Hustle on Purpose. My name is GT Eichert, and today we have a very special guest, Kevin Hommel. Kevin, how's it going, man?
Hey GT, good man, good to see you.
I'm so glad you're here. Traveled in from Memphis today.
Yeah.
We got some real estate stuff to go over this afternoon. We're going to get out on the field, look at some properties and all that. And just thankful that you took the time to swing by the office and be on the podcast. And we were able to work all that out.
Yeah, no, this is perfect. It was good to catch up, and I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
I always have fond memories of you because I have you partially to blame and to thank for being in real estate at all, really, because I wasn't, and you were part of the first interview that got me hired at the previous investment company that I used to work for. So thank you, and also curse you like just a little bit.
Absolutely. No, you got to go through some of that anyway, right? No, it's funny because I was thinking about the interview with you, and gosh, that's been probably 6-7 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love to do is actually be a part of the interview process for companies. And there's something that we noticed in you that it's just a character trait, or it's a quality that's who you want on the team. And it's in this business especially, you can learn anything pretty quickly. So if you have the good bones, we call it, then you can teach the rest. And so we saw that in you. But
well, thank you. And y'all mentioned that in my interview. You know, it was kind of a mantra of like, hire for attitude, train for skill. And at the time I didn't really get it, because I honestly applied for the job fully expecting that I wouldn't get it. Because I didn't really have much project management experience besides my roofing business. And, roofing projects are really easy to manage. It's, you got to get materials there. You got to get labor there.
Make sure they clean up.
Yeah. That's about it. It's really easy. In and out usually takes a day and you're gone, But after being hired and then being involved in a lot of hiring while I was there, man, it's so true. It's like I can train anybody in just about anything we need them to do, besides some of the specific trades. But even if you're looking to hire contractors for your project, hire for attitude, train for skill.
That's it. Attitude and effort.
100%.
The rest, if you bring that to the table, the rest we can teach you. And it's there's just not a lot of companies out there that interview that way. Get the resume, review the resume, see the experience, only interview the 3 that have the experience. And, you just don't know what you're going to get. And, when you feel it, when you're talking to somebody in an interview, you know.
Yeah.
So,
and some of that comes with experience. I've found myself getting way better at interviewing vendors and people to work for that company internally after doing it poorly a lot of times.
Well, when somebody shows you a better way and then you do it enough, it's like I'm a fan of Malcolm Gladwell and the 10,000 hour rule. And so if you do it enough, you're going to be an expert at it. And so
I was quoting Outliers just the other day.
Were you really?
Yeah. A buddy of mine, he's got 4 kids, was talking about getting his kids into sports. And he was talking about his sons, whether they were going to repeat first or second grade or something like that. And I was like, have you read Outliers? The whole first chapter is about getting how kids that get into sports, a 6-month difference when you're 5 years old is a big difference.
Yeah.
And those kids get into sports and they get the best coaching and whatever.
Yeah.
Not as applicable to this conversation, but I've read or listened to on Audible just about everything Gladwell's got out there because it's great.
It is. Yeah. Yep.
But some of that book is about kind of reimagining the not the American dream, but how we see success, right? Because so much of that book about Outliers is we think of the American dream as picking yourself up by your bootstraps. And he does a really good job of outlining some of it's completely out of your control. And it's like, you have to do everything in your control, but also some of it's just in God's hands. You know?
Absolutely.
So,
and I forget, it's the second book of Good to Great. I think it's Great by Choice. And in there they talk about return on luck. So there's a little bit of that in there too,
right?
Which is good. Yeah.
Yeah. What is that? Like Arnold Palmer's like the more I practice, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's awesome. Well, whatever it was that y'all saw, I appreciate you for helping me get that job, because man, I think about it now and I hadn't really thought about it this way, but if y'all hadn't decided to take a chance on me, like, I don't know what I'd be doing now.
You know, I've heard that a lot. I help a lot of small businesses do their people process. That's kind of one of the things that I do and that I love to do the most.
Yeah.
And I hear that a lot when you bring somebody into a culture that you've created, that high effort, high attitude, high confidence, and we're going to outwork everybody else. If you can take that and, you know, kind of generate that through the organization, people get pulled out of the mundane and they get into stretching themselves, and that leads to them learning how to stretch others. And then all of a sudden you look up and you're in a leadership role and you've got 4 people working for you, and you know, that's how it happens.
Right.
That's how you elevate up. So
yeah.
And
I'm so incredibly grateful for that experience. And it's one of those things, like the obstacle is the path kind of thing. Because what made that job so difficult and demanding is what also made it so incredible and rewarding. Mm-hmm. Right. It's like the hurdle was the path. Mm-hmm. And our society today, I think the norm is just to avoid the tough thing, and we all want instant gratification and things to be easy. And it's just one of the dichotomy of that, where it's like some of the most rewarding things are the things that are just the toughest.
They beat you up and they, you know, stretched you, taught you something, got you out of your comfort zone, whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned helping companies with culture. Is that something you're doing a lot these days? How do you do that?
Yeah, I would call my consulting business fractional executive support. That's really kind of, to put it in the elevator speech, you know, I can tell you in about 20 seconds. Yeah. My background in banking, so finance, and I understood from the banker's side, from the financial analyst side of the desk, what a good, healthy business looks like. And then you go into the entrepreneurial world and you're having to do it either yourself or with another group of entrepreneurs. And so you're having to worry about cash flow, and you're having to worry about your operating cycle, and when's the right time to make the next hire, and are we profitable enough to make another hire, and, you know, that kind of thing. So, as all of that began to be put together, and then I just started going around the country to these masterminds and these conferences, mostly in the real estate industry at first. And you meet all these businesses that are solo entrepreneurs that just on hustle got it to a certain point, and they don't know how to get it to the next level. And so that's where I found my niche, I guess, is in that spot. And then it's from there developed into, okay, I had a company hire me just to help them hire and develop a chief operating officer. I love that. That is so fun for me, because I'm going to spend a little bit of time with you and your leadership team. I'm going to get to know what your culture is, what's important to you, where you're trying to go, where you're trying to grow, if you're trying to expand. And then I can not only help you find the right person, I can also help you develop them. And so you can hand the keys off to that person and go do what you do best, right?
Yeah.
So most entrepreneurs get their business to a certain size because they know how to do things well. They don't always know how to lead things well. And so that's what that's the prototypical client that I tend to reach.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Cause all those levels of business, man. And you've probably read the book. I'm trying to think of the title, but it talks about basically every business that starts off with a solo entrepreneur goes through these like 7 stages, and each one of them has major fall offs where it's like companies either just get stuck at this stage or because they get stuck at that stage, they just die off or whatever. And yeah, it just makes you acutely aware of these issues that are not unique really to any business. And once again, the hurdle is the path. You have to like get through these stages and go to the next. You have to hire your first employee. You have to go through all of the hard stuff that comes with that. You used to handle everything. You have to hand off some of that responsibility. Yeah. You have to train them on how to do it properly. The culture starts as soon as you have that first employee. And we as entrepreneurs tend to expect ourselves out of that other person. That's just not the way it works.
Yeah.
You know,
the most common question I get asked is, GT, how do I get started in real estate investing? My go-to answer is to go talk to Robbie Cole at Benchmark Home Loans. Robbie will help you figure out the best loan option for you in your current situation and help you with that long-term planning as well. He gives out free advice 7 days a week, and he would love to help you. So if you're one of the people that's been afraid to start that conversation, I encourage you to stop right now and call 501-777-9995 so that you can start your investing journey or take it to that next level. Once again, that's Robbie Cole at Benchmark Home Loans, 501-777-9995. Well, I'm a huge fan of the Strength Finders. You probably remember all of that.
I loved mine.
Yeah.
I made my wife read mine.
And I've redone mine a couple of times since then because they do, as you evolve as a person and a leader and a professional, they do evolve a little bit, but your core ones stay pretty much the same. And so if you know what those are, what I try to teach people is you do what only you can do and you outsource the rest of that, either to like people like me to help you with, I could do fractional accounting stuff. I can get you connected with CPAs that will help you do that kind of stuff just to, if you don't need a full-time CFO or a full-time controller or something like that.
Right.
But anything that you don't love doing, try your best to get that off your plate. Anything you don't do well, try to get that off your plate. And that's where the growth ends up. But you got to have the confidence and the stomach to be able to do that. That's not easy.
Yeah. That's a skill in itself.
Yes.
Being able to hand that stuff off and have the confidence, and you got to.
I think it's wisdom too. It's not just a skill; it's wisdom. Because if you don't realize and I had somebody that I actually wasn't going to take an engagement because I could tell when I talked to them they weren't ever going to turn anything over. Mm-hmm. Well, you're going to stay the same size you are. That's just a fact. Your administration will only get as big as your administration will allow it to get, or your company will only get as big as your administration will allow it to get.
Yeah, you as the owner become the bottleneck. Yes. If you're lucky. Like that, I think that's where we're all trying to get to. Mm-hmm. But when you get there, you need to realize that it's happening.
Right.
And be able to have the wisdom to hand some stuff off.
And, so some of the most, I call wise, but smart, wise, whatever you call them, executives, entrepreneurs, they're already understanding that they're approaching that point, and they're already surrounding themselves with smart people to help them make that decision, help them through that decision. Because it's a process. It's not just, okay, I'm ready. It's if I do this, then what does that mean? So.
When I love just the concept of what'd you call it? Fractional executive leadership. Because a lot of companies can't afford a C-suite.
That's right.
And it wouldn't be smart for the business to go and hire that. Mm-hmm. But just like you can have a bookkeeper that you pay for the hours that they work, Yeah.
And I offer that too.
There you go.
Anything financial related. So to help, if you need somebody to look at your books to make sure there's good controls in place. If you find that there aren't, helping them correct those issues, dual control, signatures and things like that you have to access online is a huge deal. Make sure you're got that all buttoned up. But then when you hand that off, you still can't, I've handed it off and it's good now. I've got to have my checks and balances in place to make sure that it stays good. Right.
Right.
That's the main.
It's a big part of it.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to, the goal of getting in business is to stay in business. The goal of getting married is to stay married.
Right.
The goal of getting in shape is to stay in shape.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
Just like it's important to get it under control, but then keeping it that way is equally, if not more important.
Yes.
And so this is something that I always kind of just viewed as like out of reach, in my mind, having somebody handle my bookkeeping in QuickBooks was just, it's like, well, I just need to do it because I know where like the things need to go and whatever. And like, also falling under the assumption that like I can do it best and like nobody knows my business like I do.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting in front of QuickBooks at 2:30 in the morning and you're just like, I barely made it through an accounting class in some college that I did, right? Like there may be somebody out there that can do this in 2 seconds, do it better than I could. And they're not going to charge me near as much as I thought they were going to.
Right. And you have to decide what your time is worth. And that's the other thing people forget is the opportunity cost that you don't get to take advantage of the things that your time is better spent doing. So
yes,
that's huge. And you can't quantify that.
It's really difficult.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult. I mean, if you're in a very transactional business where you can literally define, if you're, my lawn guy, he knows exactly what his time's worth because he gets that much per lawn. He can do X amount of lawns per day.
Yeah.
But once you get to an executive level that we're talking about, it starts getting difficult to quantify. And I have gone through this and I'm still going through this, but like, I think it's common with entrepreneurs. I spent so long scratching and clawing for some traction and some growth and some opportunity and just saying yes to anything that would pay me basically, right? Because it's like the bills don't stop. You got to just keep going. You're just looking for anything to just stick, right? And then you get to a place where lo and behold, like you keep that up for long enough, some stuff sticks.
Yes.
Some stuff starts working. You get the ball rolling, so to speak. But you stay held on to that, like, I have to be like doing all of these things. And then you look up and you're like, well, no wonder I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
No wonder I'm just completely exhausted. No wonder my wife is mad. Yeah. I think I'm doing all the right things because like, hey, like the bills are paid. You got to, you went to the grocery store and you got groceries. The card wasn't declined.
I think you'd be surprised how many business owners define success as just, okay, I can look at the bank balance on my phone today and it's a decent number. And so I must be doing okay.
Payroll's covered. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do early on with a new client is I try to sit down and not just figure out what they feel like is broken, but what's working. And if you define that, that's probably for the most part, especially if you're a single member, if you're the company and this is working, then that's something you probably need to stay a part of. And then the rest we can, farm off and find somebody to take that over, whatever. But if you don't track what's working as well as track what you think is not working and where you need to improve, I think you're missing part of the growth battle.
That's great advice.
Because if you are sitting around the table at 7:00 at night, you're with your wife, you've had dinner, the kids are running around the house playing and stuff, and you're enjoying being a dad and a husband, right? Which you should.
Right.
You want to know that the next 40, 50, 60 hours I give my business are going to be the most productive 40, 50, 60 hours, not a waste.
Right.
And then you do that enough times and you're like, I just throw my hands up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in your experience with these business leaders, do you have them do the Strength Finder?
I always do.
Always do.
Yes.
I love mine. I still have a copy of mine.
Now, I recommend Strength Finders because that's the one I'm the most familiar with, but there are so many others out there. If they've already done one, that's the main thing is to just take that step to do a personality profile as it's more pertained to business.
Right.
So, like I even had people do the love languages.
Yeah.
That's huge too because there's so much psychology. I tell people all the time my favorite class I took in college was psychology. I took 2 years of it.
If I had known, if you put my brain into college age me, I would have enjoyed it more. I think at the time I didn't see the utility of it. Whereas now I'm like, I think I would have fallen in the category of like a standardized test can't like define us,
Right.
We're 8 billion like unique people and whatever. And it's like, that is true. You are different than anybody else. But the Strength Finder like blew my mind. It was incredibly accurate. Like I said, I made my wife read it because I was like, I've done quite a few personality tests.
Yeah.
They all reveal kind of the same thing. I am the way that I am, and I fit in certain quadrants of different tests and whatever. But the Strength Finder one, I made my wife read it because I was like, if you ever have a question about like why I am the way that I am on any topic, it's in here.
Yep.
And this is not just like an endorsement for the Strength Finder. I mean, it is, but it helped me put into words things that I hadn't, that like I knew to like some extent, but had never really connected the dots on.
And it does, everybody that knows you well probably knows what your biggest strength is, but to see the other four and to see how they play on each other.
Yeah.
And then if you do the strength-based leadership one, it actually has another layer of 5 supporting ones. So you can kind of see where some of these, oh my God, I didn't realize I was good at that, or I enjoyed doing that so much. That's the other part.
Right.
If you don't do those, you don't know what drives you. You probably know what motivates you, but you don't know what empowers you and fulfills you and what drains you, right?
Yeah.
So I've done Predictive Index. I've done Marcus Buckingham has a couple of different versions of his.
Okay.
So, but Strength Finders to me is the best one.
I'm a big fan of it, and I've done the. My wife loves the Enneagram.
I've done that.
She loves that one.
Yeah.
I just lose track of what like the numbers mean. Like I'm a 3. I think my wife's a 9. She's like a people pleaser. What was your strength on the Strength Finder?
Developer.
Yeah.
Developer and Maximizer were my top 2.
Okay.
So connectivity, those are the main 3, and it's everything I do kind of revolves around those.
Yeah.
I had a few others that were tied towards organization and things like that.
Yeah, it sounds like ours were like polar opposite. My wife laughed at mine because we are very opposite. She's very much the people pleaser, really like empathetic, really like connects with people. I think I had her take it actually, and like I got the one where it not only shows your strengths, but it shows like all where you rank on all 32 and like shows the bottom 5 as well. And like all of my bottom 5,
you know it, right?
Were all the people, it was all like the people oriented things.
Oh yeah.
Which I need to take it again, cause I think I've made strides there. The last time I took it was right when I started at REI, and it was all, my number 1 was strategic planning. And now I forget the rest of them, but it was all like very like action oriented things.
The other one that I recommend, if it's a big team,
it's
not somebody just trying to figure out their solo strengths. A big team, do working table.
Working table.
Yeah, it's not working table. It's the table group. It's Working Genius is the test.
So it helps you with like how everybody's personalities like fit together.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the strength. So it's Working Genius.
It's Working Genius, the table group. Yeah.
Okay. That's
it's an online one, so you can take it. You don't have to buy the book and stuff, but
and
you
the whole
can take
team
it, and it gives you the whole report.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other one that is good for teams is the Predictive Index, because if it will assess everybody in the company, and it will assess what your proficiencies are and where your weaknesses are, but it'll also, if everyone in your organization takes it, then you can chart your teams.
Okay.
And it shows you in the 4 quadrants, execution, strategy. I forget the other 2. That's embarrassing. But if you have a team that is lacking in one of those, it's kind of the same thing we used to do with the Strength Finders, and we would chart them in the 4, and we would say, all right, our Oklahoma team is this, and you're lacking in this quadrant over here, or whatever. So it's not going to create a hiring strategy for you. It's just going to help you know, hey, if I got somebody that has that strength, I may plug them in when we have this conversation about this region or something like that. Just helps you be in the know.
Yeah, it's not an end all be all, because there's other factors to take into account.
Yeah.
But it's a good starting spot.
Yeah.
I feel like
it is good to know for a team that's going to be part of some planning or some strategy, future focused thing, to have people with all perspectives on there. If you have a bunch of people that are high execution, but no one's high strategic,
Yeah.
You might go bankrupt because you went without any good direction, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The old ready, fire, aim situation.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's when you're a solopreneur, that's why it's important to know these things, because like I am high on execution. But with that, you know, it's like, you got to be aware of the downsides of that.
Yeah.
Cause it's a blessing and a curse, right? Like I'm in go mode, get things done, check things off my daily to-do list. I have my to-do list in front of me. I was just looking at it when you walked in. It's like scratching things off as I go. And like, I am completing my tasks, and like, I just stay in that mode. And man, it's like, you know, I can be like a racehorse with the blinders on, just leave a path of like stuff behind me, and like, be really bad about
absolutely
caring about it too is another issue. But so when you have these leaders go through this stuff and you're trying, do you find that their strengths as the person that like is in charge tend to line up with where the company's doing well?
Not always.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, there's one of my clients was a property management company in Arizona, and he grew beyond the size I've seen a lot of management companies grow.
Yeah.
And very smart guy, understands that, hey, I'm the one holding us back. I got us to this point. My team got us to this point. Property management, as you know, is a business that just churns people. And so that's one of the things we were talking about, was just, people process, and helping him write some position agreements and things like that. But also he understood that, what I'm good at is actually hurting our sustainable growth. It's hurting us getting to that next level, because he's more of an office guy. He's not like we ended up talking about sales and marketing kind of strategy for him. And really, to the goals he wanted to get to, it really needed to be outsourced to a marketing company. It wasn't going to be, I think, attainable by just hiring a salesperson. So, or acquisitions, that was the other thing we talked about, is you could do some financial analysis. That was his strength. We could look at a couple of options for companies that might be on the market and see what the true value of those companies would be together. And then you go make an offer, and I can help with some, bring some capital to the table if we need to, or something like that, to help you with that acquisition to get you to the layers you need to get to.
Right.
Before you do that, let's make sure you've got the systems and the infrastructure in place and the people to get you just beyond where you're at today.
Yeah.
I mean, if you double your volume overnight, that's a mess.
It's a mess. Well, I heard somebody say it, and I've adopted it as my own, but it's don't scale chaos. And I'm like, man, that hit me square in the chest. I personally have scaled chaos, and then you realize, because I'm just, this makes sense. Like, go do, I'm marking things off my list. Feel like it's got to be good. I'm taking action. Right. Yeah. And it can be, but I woke up and I was like, for my business, I was so focused on, I'm going to buy this deal because it's a good deal. I can make it cash flow, and like, what else is there to think about?
Yeah.
And so I go by the year of 2019. I think I bought 60 houses that year to keep in the rental portfolio. And it was like, go, 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 go. I mean, I was still the only person in this office, and I was doing everything. Long days, long nights. I mean, some of the companies you work for and I've worked for, like, that's not a crazy amount of houses. But as a guy in an office, it's a lot.
Yes.
Like, I can tell you, it was just a lot. And then you look up one day and you're like, man, all of these deals made a lot of sense individually. But now I'm in way over my head.
Yeah.
I've gotten to a situation where, like, each deal made a lot of sense individually. Now as a whole, I'm like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?
Yep.
The bills have gotten bigger. Everything. I was able to kind of get the ship righted, but it started me down this long journey of where I frankly, I should have called you. You would have been like, if I would have thought about it, or if I would have put my pride to the side, I would have, because you probably would have just looked at it and been like, oh man, here's 10 easy things, or like not easy, 10 things to go like do immediately that'll help like this and this.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned pride, because that's one of the things that, some of the best leaders have gone down because of that. So
you've got to run into it all the time, because
if I sniff it out that it's not going to be something they're willing to be, and I want people that like, hey, check me on that too, right? Because when you have some success, you can become proud of what you and your family, you and your business partners have accomplished and stuff. So it's easy to let it take the driver's seat too. But if I sense that they're not willing to check that at the door, it's going to be tough to.
You almost need people coming to you when they're in that like desperate situation. You obviously want people to reach out before. Mm-hmm. It's like, reach out before, reach out when things are good. And let's just make sure they are good and that you can help keep them good. But a lot of times, like somebody like me, it's like, I have a bad tendency of waiting till it's like, I have exhausted everything I can personally do. And now I'm at a point where like, I have to reach out for help because I don't know what else to do.
If somebody calls me and they're right on the edge, I can give them a little bit of advice and maybe point them to somebody that could come in and help. I'm probably not going to be the best solution at that point. Yeah. Because there is a little bit of a learning curve, right? Like you've got to spend a minute. And so my typical engagement is let's block off 10 hours and let's agree over the next 2 to 3 weeks how we're going to spend that 10 hours, you and me together, over Zoom or in person, whatever. And I've just got to ask you a lot of these questions so I understand your business, right? And it's what's working, what's not working, show me your tracking, show me your systems. And so there's a lot of trust in me that, hey man, I'm going to give you some visibility to my business here. And hopefully they see that I'm trustworthy. Right. But if I see pretty early on that they're too far gone, I'm going to try to give them some other resources maybe. Yeah. And help where I can. But also, I don't like to take an engagement just for the money. Yeah. Yeah. Because you could do that a lot in this business, in any business, really. You could, as an advisor, you could do that a lot and not really be providing the value that you should. So I try to stay away from those. Yeah. The best client for me is somebody that is already thinking about the next layer and understands they can't do it without some assistance, without some support.
That's awesome. So how do people find you for that if they're wanting some kind of consultation service for that?
Right now it's been a lot of word of mouth of just relationships. That's one of my connectivity, one of my strengths. And so I just have I stay in touch with my network, even if it's something, hey, I saw you on Facebook. Man, that was awesome. I saw your new kid. Congratulations, that kind of stuff. So
saw you on the podcast. You did great.
Exactly. And I try to, in situations where I know somebody needs something, I try to see, all right, who do I know that needs, that can solve that need maybe. Yeah. So connecting. Yeah. And facilitating. That just produces relationships where you can pick up the phone and call somebody.
It's one of those things that I encourage people to start doing in their own lives now, today, because you don't build a network of people you like, know, and trust overnight.
No.
It's a lifelong endeavor.
Right.
I spent a lot of time, especially like in my early 20s, I was just so like hard-headed and just like, I don't need anybody. Like it's me versus the world kind of thing. Like I'm just gonna, it's like, man, I just made things so much harder for myself. It's like, and the older I get, it's like, dude, I love helping other people. Mm-hmm. And like, I've got great people that love helping me. And because of that, life is so much better. Like,
do you have Maximizer in your top 5?
No, well, I probably need to retake the Strength Finder. I didn't before.
That's a trait of a Maximizer. That's, I think, why Developer and Maximizer connectivity, those three together for me, sort of provide that environment where it sort of happens naturally. It's just how I'm wired, right?
Yeah.
So, but
I don't think I was wired that way, but I think it's it's a optimistic word for people out there, because it's just like anything else. You can be born more gifted at one thing or another, but what we focus on improves, right? Like it's it can be something that I truly believe anybody can become good at it. Yeah. If your heart is in the right place, and you genuinely just want to help somebody, they're in a tough situation, and you have somebody you can connect them with, it's a great thing. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
And the more you don't have to expect something in return, like the better it all works. And it's just like, I'm religious, so for me, it's very much like a God thing. But I was more so asking, how do people find you? Like you have like a website?
Yeah. So my consulting business is the Executive Bench, and my website, yourexecbench.com.
Yourexecbench.com.
Yeah. 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 I just had to find the domain that fit it. But the idea is I'm your bench of executive support. As you need it, call me. If you need just to talk through something at a CEO level, let's talk. If you need a COO fractional, some hours of time, call me for that. I can do the CFO side too, if needed. I've got some accounting help there if somebody needs just kind of the bookkeeping stuff and things like that. So
when you've been in enough of those rooms, right, where it's like, like you said, if nothing else, you can point somebody in the right direction.
Right.
I found myself, quick side detail about me. So when I was 30, 31, it's been a few years ago, I had left the investment company I used to work for, was on this entrepreneurial journey now, wife, small kids, building this real estate business. And I found myself in like this really lonely place where it's like, I have friends that have been my friends forever. I've got a wonderful wife, a wonderful family, and they will all listen to my problems. And most of them, my wife will listen, but she doesn't have any practical, helpful advice for me. My friends will listen, but like, some of them will be nicer about it than others. Like if I have to, if I'm complaining about, dude, I spent $130,000 last month on these expenses, whatever. Half of them be like, oh my gosh, like, man, that's got to be really tough and whatever. And the other half are like, dude, must be hard.
Right. Yeah.
And so I ended up talking to a pastor at my church. I was like, man, I'm just in this like lonely spot. Like things are good. Like I don't want to complain, but I've got these issues that I feel like I have nobody to talk to about. And they ended up being like, man, I think like that may be a more common issue than you think. I ended up starting this. I call this group in my church and it's a group of business leaders. We call each other kind of like our own board of advisors.
Yeah.
And it's a place where it's mainly solo entrepreneurs that we come and we talk about like personnel issues and whatever. And typically in that group, somebody's been through something like that before or whatever. And that's been a great thing for me. But you would be much more like pointed than that group and your experience would be valuable. I think the only reason I brought it up is if somebody's out there listening and they find themselves in this lonely position, or even if they don't feel that loneliness, but they know they're the bottleneck of their business, reach out to somebody, reach out to Kevin, reach out to somebody like Kevin, find a group.
We probably have more in common on that side of things than we do on the business side of things. Hearing you talk about that, and 2 or 3 times earlier in the session, you talked about family. I think that's something. Our wives probably have the girls group and they go hang out with them. That's something they do well that men usually don't do well.
Yeah.
It's funny. I have a guys group. We call it Beer Church because it started with me and another guy that brew homebrew, but we went to the same church. And so we had this, our Sunday morning men's group was called Fight Club. And it was just come in. This isn't the pancake and sausage breakfast. This is air it out. We're here for each other. Iron sharpens iron. And it became, we can't just do this on Sunday mornings. We've got to have a middle of the week reconnect time. And so we created this Wednesday night. It started out as an accountability session. Hey, man, what are you struggling with? At least get it off your chest, right? Because we don't like to talk about things as guys.
Yeah.
And we don't like to admit that we aren't coming through, we aren't delivering, that we have struggles, right? So I think that's just men, no matter what your strengths are.
Yep.
So that led to, hey, we like craft beer. And so then it sort of evolved into this beer church. And that group is, I don't go as often as I used to, but that group now is probably 10 or 12 strong.
Yeah.
And it'll be at one guy's patio one night and just sit out and if there's a game on, we'll watch it and talk. And if there's not, then we just sit around, and it's just a connection thing.
It's so good. It's a word that I hope people hear, because it's like, if you feel the need for some kind of community and you can't find it, it freaked me out to be the founder of this group, to be the facilitator of this group, to be the one to have to go out there and invite, in my eyes, well-established business leaders and entrepreneurs to my new fledgling group, right? It was like a scary thing. It's like, who am I to lead this group? Yeah. We've got guys doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue a year in that group, and I just have this tiny little company. But you come to find out those people have struggles too. And those people like pouring into like-minded individuals that are going through tough times. The Chris Rock joke I brought up here before. It's like, everybody wants to stop you or help you when you're pushing your broken down car. No one wants to stop and help you when you're sitting there with your thumb up. Yeah. Right. It's like, by creating that group, people are like, how do I get a mentor? How do I get whatever? It's like, have you bought lunch before? Have you considered buying lunch for another person? It's like, that's all I do for that group. I provide lunch, and I make sure we have a room available, and just kind of if you field of dreams, if you build it, they will come kind of thing. And that group has been invaluable for me. I get more out of it than probably anybody else. Yeah. And I'm the leader of it. That's huge. Everything that we're strong at, there's not only a business element to it, but there is a social element to it. So if you're sometimes when the business is a grind, the only way you're going to get your fulfillment is to do the same things on the social side, right? That's so true. Mentoring, helping other people, whatever you do well, letting that benefit other people. Yeah. And that's what creates your influence, which is what really leadership is. It's just influence is all. Yeah. It's so true. It's influence, and the fulfillment we get is that people respond to that, and it's helping them do something better than they were yesterday. Right. Right. I love to talk to younger men about, hey, you're getting married, you're about to have kids. Don't stop dating your wife. Take her on trips. That's something that Missy and I, when I was not working, I can at the house or at an office. So we can go to lunch. We can work together through lunch if we want, whatever. But when I wasn't, when I was at an office every day full time, we would go to lunch once a week. That was a discipline that we wanted to have. So we didn't want to lose that dating mentality. Yeah. Then we had our kids, and we'd take a family trip every year. I was telling you before we got on, we've fallen in love with the Colorado, Denver area in the mountains. Yeah. But she and I will go together alone on a trip, probably 3 or 4 times a year. Really? Just even if it's a long weekend, because that's the way when your kids move out, you're not going to be this unhappy empty nester couple, right? That doesn't even know how to be around each other. That's to me, that's where the business and the personal come together, because you've built this life, you've built this business, and it's nice cash flow, and it's building wealth for you. What do you do with that once? Don't wait that to actually enjoy it till then. Yeah. We see people all around us, same age, maybe up to 5-6 years older than us. Marriage is ending, just a mess, Yeah. Yeah. And Anna and I, my wife, we went to a marriage conference right after we had gotten married. And when we walked in, I'll never forget, because it stuck with me. It's a big crowd. I mean, there's, there's maybe 500 people in this little convention auditorium thing. And the first guy to speak gets up there and he's like, all right, just because I want to get a feel, how many of y'all are here because you're newlyweds? And about half the room raises their hands. It's like, how many of y'all are here because you're empty nesters and you're trying to figure out how to like each other again? And the other half. Yeah. And I was like, wow. I was just so in this newlywed, honeymoon phase, it's hard to put yourself however many years into the future, but it's really worth taking some time to like consider. I mean, it's just like the name of the podcast, Hustle on Purpose. It's like, I have the tendency to focus on the hustle part and lose track of the purpose.
Right.
The reason I'm doing all of this is for my family and my marriage.
Yes.
And my community.
One of my mentors, I've never met him, but he's a mentor of mine. Read every book he's written. I've watched a lot of his. He's the pastor at North Point Church, Andy Stanley.
Okay.
And one of the things he said, we watched a video series in one of our small groups, Missy and I did, and it was the best question ever. And it was in my, knowing what my past has been, knowing what my present is, knowing what my future I want it to be, what's the best decision to make? And it was to keep you in the present and let you say, all right, my past created my experiences, and that's led me to where I am today. In today, what do I need to do to get to the future? That applies to everything. That applies to relationships. That applies to business. It applies to finances. What goals do I have? Yep. You should reverse engineer back to today and make sure you're doing the things that lead you to those goals. You can't prevent things like 9/11. We just saw a lot of stuff on that earlier this week. You can't prevent COVID and you can't predict stuff like that. But if you're doing the things you need to do to lead up to that kind of stuff, back to business and at least financial goals, you can be better prepared. You're not reacting as much as you are proactive. And then in relationships, I see, people, I never planned for this to happen. Well, you didn't plan for it not to happen. And that's something he said that I will never forget. You didn't plan for it not to happen. So we're empty nesters. We're unhappy. We can't stand each other. Our kids are gone. They don't want to come back around because we can't get along and all that. You didn't plan for that not to happen. And so if I could say anything on the personal, spiritual side, it's that plan for it not to happen. Do the things today that you got.
Be intentional.
Yes, exactly.
If you're sitting around kicking yourself because you didn't do X, Y, Z 5 years ago, make sure 5 years from now, you're not sitting around kicking, hating yourself today for what you didn't do today.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other reason I'm in town today, aside from talking to you, is we're building our financial portfolio with properties. So that's just part of our goal. And the Colorado thing will be part of that. And this and what we built in Tennessee and what we're continuing to work on. So
I'm so excited. Anytime, because I'm, like I've mentioned several times, I'm prone to action taking. And so a lot of times I talk to a lot of people about real estate investing. And I love talking about it. And my wife loves when I talk to other people about it, because then I kind of get it all out and I don't exhaust her with it. She's great and she'll listen to me. But about 3 minutes into me getting down a real estate rabbit hole, it's like I can tell I'm kind of getting the eyes glossed over and whatever. But when somebody is doing it for themselves, I just get excited because I'm like, I've seen the benefits of it for myself, my family. And I mean, you obviously have a lot of experience, but anytime somebody's doing it, it just makes me happy. Yeah,
because you can see years into their future and know if they keep it up, what their life is going to be like at that point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I'm even when, the market's doing crazy stuff and people are like, oh, like I'm scared to buy or should I sell or whatever. I'm just like, I could give you my thoughts on current market conditions, whatever. But I would just tell you, like, I would just rather you like look at my actions. I'm not fear selling anything. Yeah. I'm not like, I'm still buying stuff. Like I am, for better or worse, I'm just convinced that like the wheel will keep turning and I will be happy in 20 years for what I'm doing today.
Yeah. And if I would say have the financial disciplines personally not to need the real estate income. Maybe you enjoy it for a trip here or there or something you wouldn't normally take or whatever as a reward. But if you purely building that for the future cash flow and the future wealth, I mean, it's the best investment out there. Yeah,
I'm convinced. And I'm just excited for you, and anything I can do to help you grow what you're doing over here, I'm happy to, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
with that being said, like, do we need to get to it? We need to go out there and
let's go
get into some properties.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, dude, I can't thank you enough for the time. And
so good to catch up.
Dude, yeah, I just like talking to you. Like I said, I was thinking back on like literally like Kevin Hommel and Mark Anderson like changed the course of my life. And I can see now why you like doing that. Cause like I'm not like necessarily a success story, but like, you know, here we are like 6-7 years later, and I can sit across from you and just be like, we're in my office that I built. Like, yeah, this is like, this building wouldn't be here if you hadn't helped me get that job.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of cool.
That's so fun. It's awesome to hear that.
Yeah. So anyways, let's go look at some properties. I'm excited to do that. Thank you all for watching and listening. If you're listening on Spotify, go check us out on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, go listen to us on Spotify or anywhere else you get your podcast. This has been Hustle on Purpose with Kevin Hommel. Go check him out at yourexecbench.com. Yep. He's an awesome dude, and really think you'll be happy that you have him helping you with any issues that you may be facing in your business. So go out there and hustle on purpose. Thanks for watching. If you liked that video as much as we liked making it, be sure to check out another one. You've got one here. You got another one over here. If you want to listen to the podcast audio only, go check out the Spotify link in the description. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It helps us out a ton. And please hit the bell if you want notifications anytime we drop a new video. Hope to see you on the next one.